All right. Everybody, thank you for coming today to see how it's done, the fact-finding interview. This will be a 1 hour-ish webinar. For those who have been to my webinars before, when me and Alex get rambling, we can run all day in some cases. We're going to try to narrow this down to an hour, maybe hour and a half, depending on how many questions we get at the end. All right. But you know, what we're trying to accomplish today and hoping, you know, you'll learn from this training is how to do the fact find the proper way. You know, we all talk about, you know, and you've read my articles, you've read my blogs, you've read Alex's and Lou's stuff, watched their videos, and it's always about questions. It's always about asking the question that the client emotionally involved, so understand the problem they have. But it's all well and good to learn and memorize questions, but if you don't know how to ask them properly and don't know how to put it all together, that's where most agents struggle with. Okay, so we're gonna show you how to put it together, how to make it seamless, how I actually present to my clients. Okay, now I am. If for some of you don't know me, I'm Jeremy. I'm the guy on the red shirt here. My nephew Alex. I've been in the business going on, I don't know, since I was 17. So now I just turned 41. So 20 plus years. I'll kind of leave it at that. And you know, most time as a sales trainer and trainer at FMO during this time, but you know, everybody's have a different style of presenting. Okay, you know, but we all have the same gist of what we're trying to accomplish, and that's help people see the problem they have. You know, so you're going to see a lot of different, you're going to hear a different style today than you probably haven't heard before. My dad, Lou, uses more of a Columbo approach with his fact finding, and he is a fact finding god, for lack of a better term to use. His way works phenomenally for him. Me, I'm not, I can't play as dumb in some cases as he does run the fact find. I'm more of a jokester when I'm talking to my clients and prospects, you know, and Alex is more of a straightforward mesh between the two because he's been trained by us, you know, so you're going to hear some unique things, some different things, different way to ask questions, you know, and, you know, just learn a lot today. So we will I have to add a disclaimer, as my attorney told me I have to, we'll be role playing with fake information. Okay, all information is being made up and is being provided for demonstration purposes only. We try to answer like a typical client will, and any resemblance to a person's situation is purely coincidental. Okay, so we're not using some fact file we already had rate up. We're doing this off our head. Okay, so we want to be as real as possible to show you how easy it is to do a fact find, and also that it doesn't matter how hard the questions are, how hard they answer to throw you off. It's all, if you ask enough questions, you'll get it done. All right. So we're talking about a couple of key areas today. We're gonna do a quick review of fact finding itself. We're gonna go over how to start the fact finding interview, what you need to know to be successful, kind of our tips and tricks section. How to inject the 5-minute presentations. This is a question I get every day for my private site people, my resource center people, and a lot of my system owners that, you know, you have these great presentations. How do I fit them in? How do I use them? So we're going to go over that today. And finally, we're going to role play 3 different sections. Okay. And the role play is going to be me and Alex to kind of keep it streamlined as possible. At the end, when we go over, have questions and answers, a question and answer period. If you want to ask a question, you want to try to throw me off my game or stump Alex, you know, feel free. We'll unmute the mics and we'll have a free for all here. All right. All right. So let's jump right into the fact finding review. You know, to make the fact find really work, you have to do a 2-call close. Okay. You cannot do a fact find on a 1-call close with much success. You'll have some success doing it, but you're not going to have the typical success we have with our agents who are closing $4,000 to $8,000, $4,000 to $10,000 sales. You'll be relegated to the $1,000 to $3,000 range. But it still isn't bad. I'm not saying it's doing anything wrong. I'm just saying if you want to maximize the results of each person you meet, do a 2-call close. Okay. A fact finder is all about getting a crystal clear picture of where they are now and where they want to be in the future. Okay. And that's as simple as I can explain it. Is we're trying to get a real bird's eye view of where they are, and find out what their problems are, what their goals are for the future. Without knowing where they are today, how can we make them get them in the future than they are, further than they are right now? Okay. But the most important part of the fact find, and this is the most driven point, we all know how to ask the number stuff, right? How much you have in your mortgage? How much do you own your cars? How much do you have in debt? All that stuff. That's all the easy stuff, right? It's the uncovering the feelings, desires, and goals are more important than the numbers. It's about getting those soft facts in, helping people to really buy into the problem they have. And you're going to see a lot of that later on here of us illustrating how to uncover the big problems so they can see, wow, I got a major issue I need to fix. Okay. And that's where, and a lot of agents get to that point and then stop. They ask the baseline, how much you own your mortgage. They ask 1 or 2 little feeling questions, but they don't drive the point home. And I'm not saying drive the point till you make them cry or I want them to feel uncomfortable though. I want them to really understand the problem they have and help them take ownership of it. That I need to fix this or I'm not going to sleep at night. If you're not getting that deep, you're not going deep enough. All right. Now I don't have time to go through a whole fact-finding, questioning, and technique section and go through that. That's a whole day class, and a lot of times. But if you need more help on it, more info on the basic fact-finding, we have a recorded webinar on the Resource Center, as well as some videos you can get from our site that will walk you through some of the basics and more of the advanced stuff. How to formulate the proper questions, different scripts, lists of questions, and so forth, to help you build your knowledge base to help you make you more effective. All right. So a couple of the quick tips, and you'll see it today. Don't be yourself. I can't tell you how many agents I go out and see, and they're putting on a show. Wearing the $3,000 suit and tie, trying to be something they're not. People see through the crap. Be yourself. Even when I see my clients today, and I still have a few clients I see once in a while, they know me we're on a first name basis. Last time I went to the appointment, I wore khaki shorts and a red polo shirt. I have nothing to hide. The people that know me understand that I'm here to help them. It doesn't matter how I look. I want to look professional, of course, but I'm not going to be something I'm not. I'm not going to go put on a $3,000 or $4,000 Italian Armani suit or crap, or drive a $40,000 or $40,000 car or whatnot. That's putting on a BS show, and people see through the BS. And just be yourself. You'll have a lot more success long term. The fact find is really all about building trust. It's helping you build rapport with the client so they trust your recommendations. Okay. And this is where a lot of agents, fail to make decent sales, is because they're pushing a product or service. They haven't built the trust enough with the client to make them happy to buy it, or help them to see they need to buy it or want to buy it. Okay. I can tell you from my experience with working with clients and working with agents of my clients, a lot of times, if you do a good fact find, okay, the sale is made during the fact find. Is there any doubt of that? We're uncovering the problem. We're getting emotionally involved. That's when the sale is made. They're already buying at that point. The actual second call is just to solidify the logic behind it to make the numbers work. Okay. And the reason I say that is when you're building trust with your clients, And you go present something to them, right? If you're getting the objections, well, why this company, why that company, how does this work? You haven't built enough trust in your client. Okay, clients or prospects, whatever you want to call them, when you do a real good fact find, they should come back and say, whatever you recommend, Lou, whatever you recommend, Jeremy. And that's what happens for 99% of the clients me and Lou see. They don't ask these questions about the product. They don't ask the questions on why, Athene versus Allianz or any of that stuff. It doesn't come up. They're buying us. They're buying our knowledge and our recommendation on what they should do as advisors or consultants. Okay? The fact find's all about showing them you truly care about them in the situation. There are so many agents I talk to that are selling product, hawking goods, for lack of a better term, with well intentions, okay? But they don't know how to convey the care and emotion that they teach, that we try to teach you, because this is a business about caring for people, about bettering their situation, fixing their problems. We should care. We should invest our care in our clients. And there's so many clients agents I've talked to that have never been through a death claim, that have never had to deliver a check, that never had to do a disability claim, had to been there for that situation. So it's hard to wrap your head around how delicate and hard it is to do that. But think about it. How many times have you been through seeing a family member suffer that one of your proximals could have fixed for them? How many times does someone become disabled and not have disability insurance, or have to go through a long-term care experience without long-term care insurance or cash assets? I had an agent I talked to a few months ago who was struggling with the care. He cared a lot, but he couldn't convey it. And I told him, go read GoFundMe for a day. Read a few of the death claim or deaths in the family, loss of jobs. It breaks your heart. And that's how you get your care, your empathy for the situation. Not every client's dying right now. Not every client's losing a job right now. But that same emotion should be put into every single case you do. I hope you can hear, and it's hard to hear over a microphone online. But when you're in front of your clients, your body language, your tone of your voice, all helps you convey the care to them. Like Alex says, and I may have him go on and explain this more, but he talks about, he was telling another agent, that he memorized all the questions in the system. Every single question he memorized. And he could throw them out, right? And the agent would overtalk his clients by asking questions. He wouldn't stop in the middle and let them come in and answer the question. So he had lost all that benefit of bringing that emotion in, because you're just rattling off question after question. It was almost like a real fast interrogation versus a discovery session, helping them see the problem. Does all that make sense? I know I've been rambling for a few minutes here. All right. So when the client enters your home, they enter your office, you enter their home, wherever you're seeing them, in a Starbucks, whatever, wherever you're going, right? Be yourself. If you're a small talk. Do your normal thing. But when you're finally able to get started, this is, kind of the basics of what we're going to teach. When you get able to get started, you ask them, hey, is there a place we can sit down where we could talk? Okay. And this is a key thing, and we don't talk about it enough, but make sure the couple you're meeting with, and you should always be with the husband and wife, or husband and spouse, wife and spouse, whatever you want to call it, at the time. You don't want to do a one-legged appointment. You're shooting yourself in the foot by not having both of them there from the start. Whole different story though. So when you make sure they sit together, okay? And there's a couple of different trains of thought on where you should sit when it comes to doing a fact find. Well, a lot of agents try to do this, right? And they try to sit across from the client. And for me, that's a big no-no, okay? When you sit across from someone, right? And we talk about the word appointment. I don't use that word anymore. To sit down and talk, for the same reason. When I sit across from someone, it's a confrontation a lot of times. I'm meeting with my banker. I'm meeting with my CPA, my attorney, my accountant, someone who's going to cause me other pain, right? And a lot of times it can be a painful situation to be in, but psychologically, we want to be on the same side as the client. So when I position myself, when I'm at a table in a living room, at Starbucks, I try to sit to the left or right of both clients on the same side of the table, right? A couple of reasons for that. One, if I can see both their faces, they can't talk across me, right? So if I put one on each side of me, I'm in the middle, you're going to get screwed in this deal, okay? Because the body language, the eye contacts, husband and wives can read each other and know what you're thinking, and they can shoot you down before you even say a word. Try to be on the same side of them. It's psychological. You're here for the best interest, and it puts you on the same level as they are. Okay? Just something to think about. Now, Lou's done it all different ways. I've done it across tables, across desks. I'm more in my zone, in my frame of mind when I'm sitting on the same side of them. It's easier for me to convey, and for someone who doesn't read well, like myself, if you're across a table and you're trying to do yellow pad presentations and you can't write upside down, it's a losing battle. So another reason to sit on the same side of them is you can kind of share your pad, leaning a little bit, and everybody can read it and you can write the same way. It comes a lot cleaner, a lot neater, a lot more professional. All right. So how to get the fact find started. Now, there's one thing that we all do the same, me, Lou, or Alex. We start our fact finds the exact same way. All right. And don't write this down. I'm going to send you a copy of the PowerPoint at the end, so you'll have the full slides, everything else. Okay. So we all do the same way. So before we get started, is there anything in particular you want to talk about? So Alex, I'm going to ask you a question. So go ahead and unmute your mic.
All right.
All right. So Alex, thank you for meeting with me today. Before we get started, with our talk today, is there anything you want to talk about before we get started?
Yeah, I thought you were here to show me how to pay off my home 10 years early.
Yep. I came here fully prepared. I thought you were going, so they, like Alex said, if they came to give me a quote or something, right? Yes, I came fully prepared to talk about the mortgage paying your home off early. But if I may, I'd like to explain a little bit how I work, because I work a little different than most agents. Okay. First of all, you can put your checkbook away. I'm not going to say anything today. Is that all right? What I like to do is ask you a series of questions so I can fully understand your exact situation, and I can tailor a plan to meet your exact needs. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So do you see what we did there? There's a couple of reasons we start off that way for a couple of reasons. One, we want to get any objection out before we get started. If they came with a preconceived notion that we're going to sell them insurance, whatever we're there for, I want to get any questions they have out in the open before we get started to deflect, deflate, battle, get rid of these objections. Okay. And I tell them, yeah, I can't flip here and talk about that. Right. But I want them to understand I'm a little different than most agents, because we're not going to here to sell them anything. So first of all, put your checkbook away. I'm not going to buy anything today. Is that okay? Right. So the minute you say this, and I have agents on this call that can probably 100% attest to this, is when you say put your checkbook away, you can see their shoulders go back, they have a sigh of relief, because you just all the pressure off them of having to say no. Okay, so now you have them much more relaxed, and now they're actively listening to you because they're not trying to sell them anything. You're just trying to get them information. Okay, and the final thing we're doing is I like to ask you a series of questions so I can understand your situation and craft the plans that meet your exact needs. We're getting permission to ask questions, permission to ask about their entire situation. We didn't limit it. We didn't say, oh, just about mortgage insurance. We're not talking about any of that stuff. We're talking about doing a complete, comprehensive review of your financial situation. And they say, yes. Now, I've been in the business 20-some years. I have never had a client tell me no. Okay. After you get started, you may client say, "Why do you need to know that?" Then this is a question of just explaining why. And we'll cover that later a little bit here. All right. So that's how we start each and every fact find. All right. And that's the key to getting started. When you do this, everything else from here is easy. That's the hardest part. And for the majority of age, that fear of asking, going through this, is all based on unfounded thoughts. What if the client tells me no? What if they don't want to answer my questions? When you preface it this way, no one says no. People want to be helped. People want to be served. This allows you to get into their situation and understand where they're coming from. All right. So the 5-minute presentations, there's lots of places to interject them throughout the presentation. We're going to cover I think 2 or 3 different presentations during the role play section of showing you how it's done. But the question I always get is, how do I enter them? How do I use them? We're going to show you that. But put them in where they make sense. That's the big thing. There's different topics we talk about in retirement that we can throw in one there that makes sense. We talk about how money works in some cases, how the stock market works. The power of indexing. We have one for that. That kind of conveys some of those complex concepts. Put them in where they make sense, where they're relevant. Use them with the client as a question. I've had policies that I've sold, index policies, whole life IUL, that the client asked, they love the idea, ready to go, but how does the indexing work? Great question. Let me show you. That's where you throw it in. And finally, there's other good times to use them to plant seeds. Okay. And what I mean by that is there are times when during the first interview that going too big on a presentation, being too aggressive on a presentation, trying to use too much money, can lead to losing a sale. Okay. So during the fact find, I try to focus on getting the client to understand they have 1 or 2 big problems, and then plant seeds for other future things, future sales, disability insurance, using home equity, different things that are can be difficult for a client to grasp onto until they really trust you. Okay, so we'll use these to plant seeds to kind of craft an idea in their head that we'll come back and review at a later date. All right. Now, again, you can review the 5-minute presentations on the Marketing and Sales Resource Center. There's probably about 3 or 4 hours worth of them on the site through all the videos and webinar recordings. So if you're not a member of the Resource Center, highly recommend it because you have access to all this and these live classes. All right, no more sales pitch. All right, so we're going to jump into the role play section. I'm going to try to do a little time check here. Make sure we're on pace. Good. All right. So one of the first things, that I want to talk about, I do with every client's retirement. So I want to pull my little fact find form over here. And when I do a fact find, I always use this form. I use a yellow pad now because I have this memorized. I've been doing it for so long, but I highly recommend using the sheet because it does give you a track to follow. Okay, and it captures some basic information to kind of help use to help create trigger points so you know when to ask certain questions. All right. So, Mr. Alex, you unmute your mic again here.
I'm already unmuted.
Just making sure. All right. So, after we go through the opening, sit down and go for it. The first thing I ask the client is, hey, how do you spell your first and last name?
Right. It's Alex, A-L-E-X, Villa, V-I-L-L-A.
All right. And Alex, if you don't mind asking, how old are you?
For this purposes, I'm 42.
42. All right. Let me get my little fact find so I can write it down as I'm going here. I'll screw it up. All right. So you're 42. And, have you ever thought when you want to retire?
Full retirement age. I want to maximize my Social Security, so 67.
67? All right. And you mentioned maximizing your Social Security. Do you think Social Security is going to be there when you retire?
I really hope so.
You really hope so. Okay. Have you got a recent statement for your Social Security?
No.
No? Okay. I can tell you, and just to give you a frame of thought, I'm about your age. I'm a year younger than you. But I know remember when they used to print out the green and white Social Security statements? They mail them to you every year. You remember those?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, they stopped doing the mailing them out a couple of years ago, right? So, but on one of the last ones I received personally, and I always want to share this, I want people to understand that we have some major problems in this country in and of itself. But, did you ever read the bottom of the Social Security, the disclaimer on there?
No, I never paid much attention to it.
Okay. Well, I can almost give you the same, because you're the same as I am, so I can almost give it to you verbatim. Okay. And it says that based on our full retirement age, okay, our Social Security will reduce by 25 to 35% of our scheduled benefit. So if we were supposed to get $1,000 a month, we'd only get $750. How do you feel about that?
Well, that's a little unfair.
Yeah, right. So do you think it's going to get better or worse over the next 25 years?
Probably worse. It's a dying system right now.
Yeah. Okay. So with that being said, so what are you scheduled to get in retirement if you know offhand?
I guess I make about $100,000 a year, so probably close to maxing it out. So 25,000.
Okay, so about $2,000 a month then, right? Somewhere around there. Okay. So we'll factor in the reduction to make sure we cover the nuts. But so you're making $100,000 a year now. Have you given much thought of how much money you'll need to have an income for retirement?
Probably about the same.
Probably the same. Okay. So if you need the same 100,000 and you're going to get 25,000 from Social Security, how much of a shortfall do you have?
About 75,000.
75,000, right? So, and let me ask you an odd question. If you had a lump sum of money to invest today, what do you think you could earn on it consistently and conservatively, long term?
Probably about 4%.
4%? All right. So if you need to have $75,000 a year on top of your Social Security to keep you afloat in retirement, how big of a lump sum of money do you need to generate that?
I have no idea.
All right. So let's do the math real quick. Okay. And for you guys, this is where I give the client a calculator or have them pull up their cell phone. All right. So Mr. Alex, if you could pull out a calculator, I want you to do a math problem for me.
All right.
All right. If you take 75,000 and divide it by 4%, what does that give you?
1.875 million.
1.875 million. Okay. So what that number represents is if you had almost $2 million earning 4% to live on interest only, you would get your $75,000 a year off that amount. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So based on me being a smart butt sometimes, How much do you have saved right now?
Well, I have some in a 401k. I think I have about 100,000.
Okay. So you're only, what, 1.75 million short?
Yeah.
So when do you think you should make some changes to start saving money for your future?
Yesterday.
Yesterday, right? So now to make matters worse, let me ask you another question. All right.
Okay.
There's two questions I can really ask here. One, how do you feel about inflation?
It's something that definitely need to consider. We're averaging probably about 3% right now.
Okay. So if you're going to retire in 25 years and inflation is averaging 3%, like you say, how much more money will you need in income?
Well, 3 times 25 is 75%.
Yeah. So roughly almost, what, 80% more when you
Yeah.
compounded everything else? Probably close to 100% more.
Yeah.
So now that 1.8 million is now what if you double that?
3.6.
How do you feel about that?
I'm in trouble.
Yeah. So what would be, so how does that make you feel? What would you, if you can't accumulate that money, what are you going to do?
Well, I guess I won't be able to do all the things I want to in retirement.
Yeah.
That I have to make some changes. So
Yeah. What do you want to be able to do in retirement? Let's ask that. Let's talk about that for a minute.
I really like to travel the world, see my hopefully grandkids that I'll maybe have in the future.
Yep. Okay. And what? Of course, his wife's not here. So we don't have a wife to role play with today. But so you want to be. So that's all that stuff costs money to do, right? Are you able to do it now in your $100,000 of income?
Not as much as I'd like, but I figured I'd have some of this stuff paid off. So
Okay. All right. So we have 25 years to retirement, and roughly how much are you saving per month right now for retirement in total?
I save about 10% of my income.
Okay, so about $10,000 a year.
Yeah.
Okay, so on rough math, so if you save $10,000 a year for the next 25 years, how much is that going to be saved without interest?
250,000.
Yeah. So with interest, that should at least double once. So you'll have between $500,000 or a little more. Not too bad. So you're definitely getting there. Okay. So what do you think the biggest obstacle is from you saving money for retirement?
Just all my debts right now.
Okay, so you have lots of debts.
Credit card debt that I'm trying to get paid off, and the house payment.
All right. All right, thank you. All right, so that's really the first section, guys. That's the big thing is making sure we go through and talk about how long, how much income, Social Security, pensions. That first calculator point was the first five presentation we interjected. This whole section is basically a big 5-minute presentation of retirement. Then we go a little deeper with what do you want to do? What do you want to be able to do? You want to visit your grandkids? Want to travel the world? These are all things that are very important to somebody. So when you're taking notes on the fact line, write those hot points down. Be actively listening to the client, ask a question, and then stop. Let them answer. Let it sink in.
Yeah, that's another thing. I didn't think about to put this in the quick tips when we're writing the PowerPoint. But if they ever say something like hot button words, if there's like a hot point that they point out, like kind of like one of the ones I used, like I don't want Uncle Sam to have any more of my money than necessary. We're gonna use that, and we're gonna take them, put it, and come back with that on the second call. So just keep your ear out for any pain points that really hits home with them, so we know what's most important to them.
Yeah, those are the keys. Because when we come back at a second call, we want to be able to get them back in the same emotional state we had them in the first call. Okay, so in this first section, his response to the $1.875 million he needs to have saved What's an emotional hot point? You can basically hear the oh crap moment at that point. It's all about helping them see the problem. Then we help them take ownership of it. You know, we talk about Social Security. We talk about, you know, what do they want to do in retirement. We talked about a lot of different things to help them gravitate towards it. Things that are important to him to do. Okay? And you probably heard me say about 15, 20 times during that section. When I'm thinking, I say okay? I'm not thinking ahead of time what the next question to ask is. I never have, I never will. I'm waiting for the answer to come out before I ask the next question, before I change topics, before I change points. You know, I don't want them to feel like I have this memorized or I'm some slick sales guy. I'm the furthest thing from a salesman I can think possible, personally. Okay? I just want to help them see the problems they have. Make sense?
Another quick point is during that whole section for the retirement, what did he tell me? Almost nothing. All he did was ask questions. Every number that came up was my numbers. That way, you're not forcing anything on them. You're using their information. All you're doing is getting them to think, and then responding to what they think.
And another side point to that is, you know, this is what we tell you, you know, during our marketing conversation, during the coaching calls, is practice on your friends and family. This is exactly why. We don't want to sell to our friends and family. No one wants to sell to our friends and family. We want to because we think it's good for our business to sell to our friends and families, protect the people we care about most. We don't feel like we sold them. We want them to buy from us. This is how you do that. Ask them to practice the fact find, get them emotionally involved, and they will buy. They'll want to buy from you without you having to say, well, you know, you should probably buy this because you really need it. You don't have to say that anymore. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about insurance, and then our next little section here. So I'm going to bring up the handy dandy fact find again, and every section has trigger points. You know, we can't cover all of it. I wish we could cover all of it in an hour. The average fact find I go out and do with a client takes between 2 to 3 hours, typically. Okay, 3 have been some of the longer ones, but typically about 2 hours. So I can't jam everything into an hour session, unfortunately. But we're going to cover some of the key topics. So when we get to the college dependents, we talk about college planning, we talk about what they want to do for their kids' college, and more about where the kids are now. These are future referrals, future clients that we want to keep track of. We talk about their liabilities, the pain they have. We're going to come back to this in a minute. Where they work, taxes. I mean, all this stuff has this huge impact to what we talk about. So the next thing we're going to talk about is insurance. And when I say insurance, it's not just life insurance. It's all insurances. You know, we're going to focus on the life side of it because that's where most agents stumble with. So we want to focus in heavily on that today. But when we talk about life insurance, you know, the first question, you know, I tend to go to is, do you have any life insurance?
Real quickly, Jeremy, before we actually get into that, this came up. When we were role playing the first section for retirement, I mentioned I had a 401k.
Mm-hmm.
Now we don't go through it there because we're going to go through that in the latest section, but there's all kinds of questions about that in itself. But I don't want you guys to think that we just passed over it because like normally we'd come back. We're not going to today, but normally we come back and do a full section on the retirement assets.
Yeah. Thank you for pointing that out, Alex. All right, so Mr. Alex, you know, so you've been with your company for how long?
About 10 years.
About 10 years. And, you know, do they provide any life insurance, or do you have any personally owned life insurance?
I have a term policy, about 250,000.
200,000. And how many years left on that term policy?
I got it when I got my mortgage, so 20 years left.
20 years left. Okay. And approximately how much are you paying per month, per quarter, or whatnot?
I didn't actually find that out. Probably, we'll say $35.
35. Okay. Like I said, guys, we're shooting this off the top of our heads as far as the information, so we don't have canned topics. That would seem kind of fake and kind of chinky. Okay. All right. So now, so do you have any insurance to work? Or just the term policy you personally own?
Just a term policy I currently own.
Okay. And you know, how much do you know about life insurance?
It pays money to my heirs when I die.
Okay. That's about it. Okay. Well, if I may, can I teach you everything I know about life insurance in about 5 minutes?
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right. All right. So again, guys, this is a 5-minute presentation that I'm telling you, and I would almost, if I could require it for everyone to learn this and master it, I would, because this presentation in and of itself will make you more insurance sales than anything else. Okay. Now, a caveat to this: when I got the business at 17 and got selling at 19, I learned this presentation. Okay. And it worked too well for me. Okay. What I mean by that is at the end, and Lou tell you a huge story about this. Some of you may have heard the story behind this. The statement that's usually made is there's 2 statements. One, this is the first time I understood different types of insurance, and 2, why would anybody buy term insurance? Now, me being 19 and in sales and dealing with all people that are my age-ish back then, no one wanted to buy term when I was done. They all want to buy the permanent stuff. Well, being, wine tasting a beer budget, they couldn't afford anything besides term. So I ended up losing. This actually cost me sales until I realized, hey, I need better clientele, older clientele. And when I started doing older clientele, I started making a lot more money and closing a lot more cases. So this is a real quick 5-minute presentation we use. I'm going to run through it really quick. The first thing, let's talk about term insurance. Term insurance is the least expensive initially. Over time, the premiums are guaranteed to go up, right? And in the end, all you get back is a bunch of receipts, right? Unless you die. If you die, you get paid off. But if you live through the term over that 10 or 20 year period, when it ends, you get nothing back, right? It's kind of like renting a home if you think about it, right? Why do you rent a home when you first moved out of your parents' house? Because it's at least expensive initially, right? Over time, the rent's guaranteed to go up. And in the end, all you get back is a pile of receipts. You don't own anything. You get no value back to it, no nothing, right? Now, on the flip side, you have investment grade insurance. You can use whole life for your guys. You can use IUL, whatever products you want to fill in the blank there, okay? Investment grade insurance is max funded insurance, okay? So investment grade insurance is the most expensive initially, but over time, the premiums are guaranteed to stay level, and they can even go down and stop. Okay, in the end, you're gonna get all your money back plus a bank type return, market type return, depends on the product you're selling. Okay, if you hold it for 15 years or longer, it's kind of like owning a home. Owning a home is most expensive initially, right? Over time, your mortgage payment is guaranteed to be level. Okay, and it can go down to even stop when it's paid off. And if you hold it for 15 years or longer, you're typically going to get all your money back plus a bank type return to it, right? We all can agree owning homes is a great investment. Why would anybody want to rent their insurance, right? So then there's all kinds of hybrids in the middle here. And hybrids can be return of premium terms, GULs, all kind of stuff. They're, middle of the road price wise. Premiums can go up. They're not guaranteed level. They can go up, they can go down. Some can stop, some cannot. And hopefully at the end you owe your money back. So it's kind of like owning a mobile home or a condo. With a mobile home, yeah, you're always gonna have the same fee for the lot rental, but your trailer will get paid off. There's all kinds of things there. And if you sell it, you may get all your money back. So like I said before, which one makes more sense to you? And people always gravitate towards this. Make sense? All right. So, Alex, is there anything important that you rent long-term in your life?
No.
No. Why is that?
Because it doesn't pay off. It costs you more in the end.
Okay. So by having that term policy, are you just renting your insurance?
Correct.
And how do you feel about that?
I guess I'm wasting money there.
It's kind of a rude awakening, isn't it? You're throwing money down the drain every month. So if we can show you a better way to position or buy the life insurance you need and have it be more permanent, is that worth diving into?
Absolutely.
Okay. So that's one avenue you guys can take to, going through the life insurance. Another thing we can be asked is, so you have that $200,000 in term insurance. How do you come up with that number?
It's enough to cover my mortgage.
Okay, so you bought it just to cover the mortgage?
Correct.
So if something were to happen to you and you passed away, hit by a bus, run over by a bull, whatever, how much, if you paid the mortgage off with it, how much did it leave your family?
Like $5,000.
Like $5,000. Would that cover your final expenses?
Not really.
Not really. And does your wife work now?
No.
Okay. Why is that?
We wanted her to be able to stay home with the kids.
Okay. So if you want to stay home with the kids, if you don't have the insurance to protect her, what's going to happen when you die?
She'll have to go back to work or move in with her parents.
Yeah. Is that what you want to have her do?
No.
No. Because on top of just having you not around, then she's move back with their parents. How would you feel if she passed? You had to pay for someone to take care of the kids.
That would really suck.
Yeah. So there's lots of ways to ask the questions about insurances. Talking about group insurance. If Alex said, well, hey, I have a term policy through work, great. If he had a huge life insurance policy. So Alex, let's role play that. So if you have give me a number of insurance.
Let's say I have $1 million.
Okay, so you have $1 million of insurance. All right, so Alex, you have $1 million term policy. Okay, if something were to happen to you, get hit by a bus, run over by a bull, whatever, tomorrow, and you use the insurance to pay off your mortgage, how much does that leave your family?
$750,000.
Okay, and based on your current income of $100,000 a year, how long would that last them?
About 7.5 years.
Okay, and then what you gonna do?
She'd have to find a new job.
Find a new job, get remarried, move in with parents, sell the house. Is whatever the reason is that what you want to have her do?
No.
In a perfect world, what would you like to see happen?
I'd like to be able to keep living where she's living.
Okay, and not have to go to work at all.
Correct.
If she wants to. Okay, so worst case scenario, could she live on less income than you're making right now?
Probably.
Probably, but not too much less, right?
Correct.
Okay. So if you had to, how long will you? Well, that's not your question. So let me ask you this question. So if you had a lump sum of money to invest today, based on our previous conversation, you said you could earn about 4% on it consistently and conservatively, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so for you to provide that $100,000 of income to her, how much insurance would you need to do that?
I guess it'd be that same number that actually it's gonna be a little bit more 'cause Social Security.
Yeah.
So
So
100,000 divided by 4%, which would be 2.5 million.
yeah. Okay. So out of that, but that 2.5 million is just to replace the income. Okay. So if how much do you own your home?
250,000,
Okay.
a
And how
little
much of
less.
the debt do you have?
Probably
Doesn't
another
doesn't matter.
30,000 altogether.
It's the point is you can stack from here. Okay. You can help them see, hey, I need 250 plus, you know, or 2.5 million plus 200,000 for the house. You know, you can get to see the big number here. Again, don't let the number scare you. I know I have a couple of people I know on this call that see, extra zero added on the end of something and start having palpitations. Don't let it scare you. I learned this years and years ago. As you know, I do lots of cases for agents, all over the country, and I've done some huge cases. And one of the first ones I did that I had palpitations with is I was doing a doctor refinance policy, and you've heard of it. You got all heard of this policy that we talk about all the time, where I was doing a couple $1 million of premium over 5 or 6 years of these policies. And it was, buying some $3 and $4 million life policies. And it was overall $157,000 in commissions for the first year. And it went up from there. So, but it's all the same, guys. Whether it's 10,000 or up 10 million, it's all the same, just extra zeros. All right. So next one to talk about is disability insurance, and this is probably one of the most undersold products that I talk to most agents that don't even know how to sell it, and it's probably one of the easiest products to sell in all, to be honest. It's easier to sell disability insurance than life insurance. Okay, we at one point in our careers we were the number one or number two disability insurance FMO with Jefferson Pilot back in the 90s. Okay, and it's asking the same simple key questions. Okay, so Mr. Alex, you've been working at Boeing wherever you've been working for the last 10 years, and do you have the type of insurance that would replace your income if something were to happen to you because of sickness or disability?
I have workers' comp, right?
Well, everybody has workers' comp, but I'm talking about, something to replace your income.
Oh, no.
No. All right. And so what would happen if tomorrow your paycheck stopped?
That really wouldn't be good.
No.
We'd be in serious trouble.
Yeah. I mean, how, so you'd have to do what to make ends meet?
We'd probably have to sell the house.
Well, stuff you can do. First, you have to eat through your savings, right?
I don't have that much.
Well, I mean, you have your 401k. We talked about that a little earlier, but you'd run out of money pretty quick, right?
Right.
How do you feel about that?
Definitely not good.
Definitely not good. So if we could show you, how you can protect you from having that happen, is it worth looking into?
Absolutely.
Disability is the easiest thing to sell in the world. Now, there was we talked to an agent the other day, and he's a paramedic down in Florida, and he works with firemen and as his key market. His name is Kevin. And I wish I had him on the call today, and I can help him tell you his little disability spiel he uses. It's phenomenal. It's all about vacations. So if you want to hear it, I can see if I can get him on the call next month and have him go through that with us. But disability insurance, all these insurances we talk about, all have their own set of problems that go along with them. The life insurance, disability, home, owner's health, all the things that people have. So when you go line by line and talk about the problems they have with them, the homeowners, auto insurance. The big problem with these is the premiums are usually can be high because they have low deductibles. The whole conversation for that we talk about. Health insurance with ACA, premiums have skyrocketed, deductibles have skyrocketed. So to have people help them create an emergency fund is paramount to their survival now. Let me ask you guys a question. What's the number one cause of bankruptcy in this country? If you have any ideas on what that is, type it in the chat. I want to see what you guys' answers are. All right. So, yeah, Ebony, you're spot on. It's illness and medical expenses. Number one causes for bankruptcy. Not job losses. It's health stuff. People are going bankrupt because of the inability to either have insurance or pay the insurance they have. I got off the ACA 2 years ago. I went with a different opportunity that I thought was a better situation for me, which actually is in a lot of ways. But the last plan, because Georgia had most of the companies drop out, and we only had Blue Cross and Aetna or something in the state of Georgia about 2 years ago, and neither plan took the hospital here in town. They omitted the major chain of medical facilities in town. I would have had to drive 30 miles to go to the hospital. Okay. And for me to get a plan under $1,000 a month, I had to have a $10,000 a year deductible. It was ridiculous. And with a disabled wife, with a son with migraines, taking care of that stuff, it probably would have put a big hurt in my pocket. I'm paying $12,000 a year, but I have to spend $10,000 before it even kicks in. That's junk. I can self-insure for cheaper than that in a lot of cases. All right, but whole different story. All right, so disability, life insurances. Ask the questions, help people see the benefits, see the problem, talk out the numbers. We're not trying to educate them, because if we educate people too much, they don't need us. They'll find it themselves. But we want to help them to see the problem. And we want them to take ownership of the problem. I said it 1,000 times already, it feels like. All right. So next section is debt, and this is one of this where agents kind of stumble and are afraid to ask questions on because they don't know what they don't know. But it's one of the most powerful sections because you can help people really take ownership of the situation, and you can really show them how they can become debt-free with a little presentation I'm going to use for you. It's a very simplistic one. But, the first question, and back to Mr. Alex here, Mr. Alex, what debts do you have right now?
Well, I have a little bit of credit card debt. I have 2 car payments.
All right. So let's start with the credit card debts for a minute here. All right. So how much do you owe on the credit cards?
A little bit over $15,000.
A little bit over $15,000. And what's your minimum payment on that $15,000?
It's about $400.
About $400. And are you paying any more than minimum on that?
Yeah, I pay about $750 a month.
Okay. And what kind of interest are you paying on that card?
14%.
14%. All right. So has anyone ever showed you how much that debt is really costing you?
No.
No. Okay. So let's get a handy dandy calculator back out again. Right. So if you have a $15,000 debt and you're paying 14%, so take 15,000 times 14%. What's that number?
$2,100.
Okay. So you're spending $2,100 a year on interest, giving that to the bank freely. How do you feel about that?
That sucks.
How much better off would you be if you had that $2,100 a year back in your pocket?
Could be a lot better off.
What'd you be able to do with that?
Well, to start, I could take better vacation.
Yeah. All we could do with extra 2,000 whatever dollars, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and you said you had 2 car payments?
Yes.
How much do you owe on both cars?
One, I have 1 year left. I owe about 4,000. The other one, so I have 3 years left. I owe about 14,000.
Okay. So overall, you have about $18,000 in car debt. And how much is that costing you a month?
Between the two of them, about $700.
About $700. Okay. And you said you have 1 year left and 3 years left on those. And what are your plans after those cars are paid off? What are you going to do?
Well, I'll probably gonna turn them in and get a new one.
Okay. And you can turn both of them in or just one of them in, or?
Just one.
Okay. All right. And we know car interest is always horrible, right? How much are you paying interest on those car loans?
Interest wise, I actually have pretty good credit, so it's I'm paying 5% on the one and 6% in the other.
Okay, not too bad. All right. And now we know we talked about you having a mortgage, and how much how much mortgage do you have?
I owe about 175,000.
Okay. And how much is your home worth right now?
Well, I bought it. It was worth 250. It's been about 10 years, so probably about 275.
So 275. All right. And on that 175, so what's your current P&I payment or total mortgage payment?
It's about $1,500 a month.
Okay. And are you making any extra payments to your mortgage?
Yeah, I do the every 2 weeks plan. So I
Every
pay
2 weeks.
$750 every 2 weeks.
Okay. And you ever given thought to refinancing your home?
No, I'm just trying to pay it off as fast as possible.
Okay. Okay. So, if you mind, can I ask you a few questions about that?
Sure.
Okay. So, why do you want to pay your home off?
Well, I mean, that would be $1,500 each month back in my pocket. That'd be really helpful.
That it would be. It always pay it off. If everything being paid off is usually pretty good. But let me ask you a question. If you could have a tax deduction, how much would you want the tax deduction to be?
As big as I want. As I can get.
And how long would you want it?
For as long as possible.
Okay. So by paying off your home, are you increasing your tax deduction or lessening it?
Lowering it.
How do you feel about that?
I guess I never really thought about that.
Yeah. You're hurting your best friend. Right? So now, so you have all this equity sitting in your home. You have $100,000 sitting in your bricks and mortar of your home. Okay. Is that $100,000 accumulating any more or less in value?
Yeah, my house goes up every year. It goes up every year.
Of course, the house goes up because that's what supply and demand dictates, right? It's not, equity has no rate of return.
What do you mean?
Okay. What I mean by that is if you have, let's use your house as an example. If you took a mortgage on your home for $275,000, okay, is your home going to appreciate any more or less in value if it's fully paid off or mortgage to the hill?
No. Okay, I get it.
Okay. So the equity has to return internally. It's going to go up no matter what happens. It's based on what the market does, right?
Right.
The housing market does. So if you have all these debts, and if I add it up correctly, we're looking at what, $33,000 in debt.
Correct.
Okay. So let's think about this for a minute here. All right. So if you have $33,000 in debt, and that's costing you, let's see, what, $1,450 a month.
Mm-hmm.
All right. If you took a line of credit against your home for the $33,000, okay, what would the interest rate be on that loan?
About 4% probably.
4%. Listen, for easy math, let's use 10%. I'd rather shoot high than shoot low, right?
Okay.
So that would, at 10%, that would cost you $3,300 a year.
Uh-huh.
All right. So over the next 10 years, right, at $3,300 a year, how much would you spend?
33,000.
33,000. All right. Over the next 20 years,
66, 99.
and 99 over the next 30 years, right? Okay. So if you took and paid that money, took that money and paid off those debts, right? That would free up $1,450 a month for you to put away. Okay. Now the new mortgage, the new HELOC payment is $3,300. Okay. So that would mean your payment would be $270 something a month.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
Okay. So $1,450 minus $270, let's call it $250 for easy math. That would save you $1,200 a month. Right? So 1,200 times 12 is what? $14,400 a year?
Correct.
So without any interest, if you saved $14,400 a year for 10 years, what would you have?
144,000.
Over 20 years?
288,000.
And over 30 years?
422. Did I do that right? 432.
532, something around there. All right. So would you spend $99,000 today to make $532,000 in the future?
Every day of the week.
How big a dent would that put in the retirement nut you need to crack?
Ooh, that'd be in a great spot.
Right. You know, and throughout time, now with the laws changing, it's a little different now, but you know, it used to be you could write off all the interest on that HELOC too. So now how much better off are you?
Much better.
Okay. And that was the second final presentation, guys. And I'll go through it again here. I get some slides on it too.
And you can do that with a refinance too, instead of a HELOC that way as well.
Yeah. I mean, there's lots of ways to do it. You know, you can do a simplistic analysis with tax dollars. You know, so if we had gone through and he says, well, you know, if I ask Mr. Alex, you know, are you getting a tax refund or you're owing every year?
Yeah, I get a refund about $5,000 a year.
About $5,000 a year. So how do you feel about having to wait the entire year before you see your dollars?
That's actually kind of nice. It's usually my vacation money for the year.
Okay. But if you had that $5,000 back in your pocket, would your credit card debt be up so high?
Probably not.
Probably not. So if I could show you a way to how to get that money back each and every week into your paycheck, how much better off would you be?
A lot better off.
Okay. So there's lots of different ways to skin the cat here. Okay.
Yeah. And another real point about that is I always like making the point, does it make sense to, especially if like they don't like taxes, does it make sense to overpay your taxes each year? Does it make sense to give Uncle Sam an interest-free loan each year?
Yep. All right. And we're running low on time, but I'm not going to go over these slides, but it's basically the same thing I did with this round number. But okay, so like I said, I mean, guys, the fact find process it's really an easy process once you learn the real basics of it. You know, and just those 3 sections, if you go through them, you'll increase your sales. Okay. Talking about life insurance, talking about retirement, talking about their debts. And the only thing that really helps, that those 2 of the areas I talk about a lot during my fact find, which is the taxes and the assets. But all these things are important. It's important to get the problem out in the open. It's important for you to help them understand the problem they have and help them to see they need to fix it. You know, and when you can do that, you'll make more sales. So the rest is easy from there. You know, it's helping them see the problem, take ownership. The sale is made during the fact find. All right. So for more help with this, you know, we have a fact finding system. I'm not trying to sell anything. I'm just letting you know where you can get more resources. The fact finding system, we have access to tools in the resource center, and for our coaching and for system owners and Platinum and Support members, we do have coaching and role play available during those coaching calls to help you fine tune and help you integrate this into your system and get you up to speed on as fast as possible. Because it is a learning curve. There's no way around it. You know. So that's the whole crux of it today. We're going to go through a question and answer period now. If you have questions, want to be unmuted, either type in the Q&A box, raise your hand, we'll unmute you, and we'll spend about 15 minutes. We're already over the time limit again today, as I thought we would be. But again, thank you guys for coming out today. I appreciate you guys coming to these calls. I love talking about these different concepts and sharing information I know and love for an industry I care about deeply. You know, and I want to see you guys succeed in all things. So, have 2 questions already. Excuse me. All right, Paul had to leave. That's fine. Let's see. Rick asked, "What are some emotional questions for the following: final expense and long-term care?" Final expense is a tough one for me. I don't like that market, so it's hard for me to really fathom. I've never had to do that market, but the questions I would ask when it comes to final expense is conveying the problem they have when the loved one's left behind. You know, with the final expense market, you're not really getting into income replacement as much as we should be. We're just covering that last bit of money for a little bit of legacy and a little bit of coverage to pay off the funeral, cremation, or whatnot. So I would ask questions to the point, you know, if you were to pass tomorrow, you know, and you had no savings, no money left behind, how would that help or hurt your family? Help or hurt your spouse? You know, would that leave a financial burden on them to help take care of you after you're gone? How do you feel about that? You know, another question is, we talk a lot about legacy planning. You know, so we all agree we're going to die at some point in our lives, right? And when you die, do you want to leave anything behind? What was that, Alex? Just lost my audio.
Can you guys hear me? I just lost Jeremy's audio. I don't know if it's my computer or his.
If someone could to let me know they hear me or not, that'd be great. Can you hear me now? Okay, sorry about that. I must have hit the mute button on my microphone. I apologize. But it'd be all about you know, what if you weren't here tomorrow, would you like to leave any money to your loved ones, you know, that you meant to save? You know, do you want to be a financial burden to them when you pass? If we can show you a way to prevent that from happening, is something you want to talk about. You know, those are the questions I would definitely get into. Now, final expense is a market, like I said, I don't really get into that much because it's a very price-driven, one-shot close marketplace. So it's hard in that aspect, but you can ask, there's a few poignant questions we can ask to help them see the problem and get them emotionally involved right then and there to make a quick transaction. Okay, so those are a few you can ask. All right, long-term care. Long-term care is a tough one because it's one of those things, one of those insurances that personally I think everybody needs in a lot of ways. As having a mother-in-law who is a Alzheimer's nurse at a long-term care unit, I've seen some really bad stuff. People come through there and just get demolished by long-term care expenses. But it's one of those things that until people see it, it's tough to understand. Okay, but you can convey it by looking at a situation and asking questions of how it affects them. Okay, so if you had, you know, you guys are making so much, you know, you and your wife are making, you know, $100,000 a year in retirement, and if one of you had to go into a hospital because of a slip and fall unable to bathe yourself, eat, whatever, lost your mind to Alzheimer's or whatnot, how much would you have to spend for care? And I'll have that conversation. Well, the cost of care, because people say, I don't know what the cost of care is. Most people don't have a clue. But I would say, are you aware that the cost of care per day for skilled nursing care in a home is about $250 a day? So over the course of a month, at $250 a day, how much is that going to cost you per month? It's like $7,500 a month. So if you had, at $7,500 a month, you're making 100 grand now. That's only about five. If you're making 100 grand, that's 8,000 a month roughly. So that'll leave you $500 for the rest of your expenses. How do you feel about that? Or have the asset conversation that if something were to happen, if when you had to go on care, it's going to cost you, not $80,000 a year. How long would your assets last? If only one of you went on claim or on a long-term care claim, yeah. What if both of you went on one? How fast would you run out of assets? Now, assets are a great question when it comes to long-term care, because in a lot of ways, if clients don't have a lot of assets, long-term care doesn't make sense in a lot of ways. So this is a whole other conversation for another time. I won't get into it. Forget I said that. All right. Okay, so how do I end the fact find? Great question, John. I didn't think about putting this in there. And it's something I always talk about. So when you end in the fact find, after I go through and collect all my information, I say something very simple. What I'd like to do now is take the information back to my office. I want to chew on it for a little bit and craft a plan that's going to meet your exact needs and goals. Does that make sense? Does the same time next week work for you? Always set the next time to meet. Okay? But it is the reason I want to review the situation, I want to think about it, and craft plans that meet your exact needs. Does that make sense? That's all there is to it. All right.
Yeah, one thing before that is before we usually do that is I usually do a quick review with them. So basically, Mr. Jeremy, if I understand this correctly, your top 3 things with this: you wanted help getting out of debt, you wanted help getting more life insurance, you wanted help with retirement, or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
That way, I know what me and him are on the same exact page of what he's looking for.
Great point, Alex. Great point. All right. Yeah, if the client has, if we call homework for the client, getting statements, getting information for us. Yeah, I mean, I have them do it between the meetings. I try to have them do it next day, couple days after the thing. I'll follow up with a text message, follow up with a call or email to them. Hey, do you have those statements done yet or whatnot? I'm not pushy with them. It's great to have them, but there's ways to work around them if you don't have them. All right. Okay, here's a question. Okay, so Ernie asked a question about workman's comp. Workman's comp versus disability it's very simplistic. Workman's comp only pays if you're hurt on the job. So if you're working in a factory, and a machine falls on you and it breaks your legs, you can't work for 6 months, that's a workman's comp claim. Okay. And disability will sometimes kick in to cover the offset of it, depending. Because disability is more a personal thing. It's personally owned. So if you get hit, hurt off the job, if you're walking across the street hit by a bus, if you're at a baseball game and get run over by one of those mascots running around in funny uniforms, that's when disability would kick in and help you replace that income you lost because of sickness or injury. Right. All right. Does anybody have any other questions? Any question? Anybody want to ask a question? Chat with us live? Anything? All right. We have one other question in the chat. Ebony asks, would it be best to obtain information to review in order to... Okay, so yeah, for that stuff, typically, depending on how the conversation is going. Okay, so if I'm dealing with a client that is after that first section about retirement heavily invested, and wanting to help fix the retirement issue, then I will ask for statements for their pension, Social Security. We'll get on the computer a lot of times because all this stuff's computerized now. 99% of it, I believe. That you can pull pension statements offline, and same thing with Social Security statements. So I will show them how to get online and do it right then and there, or I'll give them homework and a list of things that I need them to complete, pretty quick. Okay. If I'm talking about their taxes, pay stubs are a huge help. Letting them know how they're claiming their state and federal taxes. But I typically ask that in the first visit. If they're heavily invested in the fixing the problem, and it helps us solve the problem by getting that information, then I'll ask for it. But I'm not going to ask for, if I don't plan on moving there. Like, I've had clients where I've gone through and said, they have an IRA that has a couple $100,000 in an annuity. Okay, I'm not going to worry about that yet. There's other problems I can solve first, then come back and fight that battle, get the statements, and help them move that money. Again, so that's planting the future seed for the different needs they have. Make sense? All right, looks like we answered all the questions. Thanks, Ebony. If just out of curiosity, and was this information we shared with you valuable today? Thank you. I tend not to ask that question, but I do appreciate it, and I'm glad you guys thought it was of value today. If you have any other questions, everyone knows how to reach me, I think. You can email me at jeremyn@insuranceproshop.com. You can call us toll free or direct at the numbers on the screen. We're here to help you, is what it comes down to. So if you have any questions, need a little help, need some role playing, let us know. And again, I apologize for running long. Alex was joking beforehand and said, why did we make the class an hour and a half, 2 hours long from the start? I don't even think about it. I just want to I plan on doing an hour session and going, but we always run long. So I apologize for holding it for the rest of your day. But I'm glad you found value in what we talked about today. If you have any questions, call me after the call ends. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. Other than that, have a great day, great week, and make it a great day.